The next matter on today's hearing agenda is the matter of Rochelle Heller. We have all of our board members present again. Ms. Heller is present. Are we ready to go on the record? Okay. I'm now opening the hearing, and we're on the record in the matter of the reinstatement petition of Rochelle Heller. This matter is Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2016-071151, and it comes on for hearing on Thursday, August 25th, 2016 in Los Angeles, California, before the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians. I am Administrative Law Judge Juliet Cox, and I'm assigned today to assist the board in considering this petition. I'd like to begin by having the representatives of the parties announce themselves for the record, beginning with the representative from the Attorney General's office.
Good morning, Your Honor and members of the board. I'm Vinodini Keller, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7 and Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you. Would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Rochelle A. Heller.
Thank you. And I understand that you'll represent yourself today?
Correct.
All right. So you've been present when we had a couple of hearings this morning. As you saw, what we'll do is first I will ask Ms. Keller to introduce the case for us and present the petition that you sent in. Then I'll turn the matter over to you, and there you may have additional evidence, documentary evidence that you'd like to present, as well as testimony, and you'll have an opportunity to answer questions from Ms. Keller and from the board. Please ask if anything comes up that you have a question about. Do you have any questions right now before we begin?
I don't.
All right. Ms. Keller.
I'd first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the original petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of this exhibit. The documents consist of the following: the petition for reinstatement, the petitioner's license certification, the notice of hearing and related correspondence, and the board's 2012 decision accepting the voluntary surrender of Ms. Heller's license. I would now like to offer a brief summary of Ms. Heller's history with the board. Ms. Heller was issued a vocational nurse license by the board on January 20th, 1987. On October 22nd, 2010, Ms. Heller was convicted of a misdemeanor DUI for driving under the influence. Less than 1 year later, and while still on criminal probation for her first DUI, Ms. Heller was convicted of a second DUI. The San Diego County Sheriff's Department stopped Ms. Heller for speeding and noticed her eyes were bloodshot and watery, her eyelids droopy, and he could smell the odor of alcohol in her vehicle. Ms. Heller provided a breath sample, and her blood alcohol concentration was at 0.155%. The police officer was able to confirm that she was still on probation for the October 22nd, 2010 DUI at the time. Ms. Heller was convicted of the second DUI on July 1st of 2011. On March 26, 2012, the board filed an accusation against Ms. Heller's license. On June 13th, 2012, Ms. Heller voluntarily surrendered her license. The board adopted the stipulated surrender effective September 16, 2012, and as part of this stipulated surrender, Ms. Heller was ordered to pay $1,825 in cost recovery. Ms. Heller is here today petitioning the board for reinstatement of her license. In her petition, she states that she is not alcohol dependent and never was, and that she still drinks occasionally and socially. She also writes that she wants her license reinstated because she loves being a nurse and wants that privilege back. I'm now prepared to proceed with questions unless the petitioner would like to make an opening statement.
All right, Ms. Heller, would you like to make any statement under oath before we look at the evidence that you have?
No.
Okay. You mentioned that you had brought some additional documentation that you'd like to present to the board. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. If you'd like to bring it here, I'll mark it for identification and we can distribute it. Thank you. So you've handed me a stack of documents. They're stapled together, and I'm going to mark them all together as Exhibit A for identification. While the board members are receiving those documents, I'd like to swear you in as a witness so that you can answer questions from Ms. Keller and the board. Do you solemnly swear or affirm, under penalty of perjury, that the testimony you'll give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Keller.
Ms. Heller, what is your sobriety date?
I don't have a sobriety date because I'm not an alcoholic.
Have you ever attended an alcohol abuse rehabilitation program?
The court ordered an 18-month program, which I completed.
And when did you complete that program?
I think that was May of 2013.
Can you describe your rehabilitation efforts, if any,
In what area?
as related to alcohol abuse?
I can tell you about the overall experience and how I live my life. Is that what you're interested in?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the 18-month program had a huge impact. The DUIs had a huge impact on my life. I wasn't drinking daily. I was using alcohol to self-medicate for stress and what was later diagnosed as depression. Through the program, it really taught me that I wasn't alone and I could reach out for help, that there were other ways of coping, which I've implemented in my life. I could relate to everything and everybody in that program because I don't believe it all had to relate to alcohol. I think it related to living life and overcoming obstacles and coming up with solutions to difficulties that we all face. It really gave me strength and got me back on path in my life, which had always been a powerful, focused, purpose-driven life. And at that time in my life, that was very difficult after a divorce of 23 years, raising 4 children on my own. At the time of the divorce, ages 7, 12, 14, and 17. And I had primary custody. It was very, very difficult. So through that program, through all the AA meetings, which over 100 I attended, which I still attend occasionally. I'm still friends with the 42 women that I met in those groups. It's still in my phone as a reminder if I ever want to go, but I am involved in yoga with these women, meditation groups. I cannot stand in an AA meeting and stand and say I'm an alcoholic, because I'm not. It never fit for me. So I could relate to everything that they talked about, and had I maybe continued on that trajectory of where I was in 2010, 2011, that may have been the end for me, but it wasn't at the time of the 18-month program. I wasn't addicted. I was using it to self-medicate. Was treated in early 2012 for depression. My therapist estimated that I probably had been suffering depression for several years after the divorce. I was put on medication, responded immediately, have gone forward in my life tremendously since with meditation, journaling, a lot of self-love, self-care, work in hopes of also getting my nursing license back. I've created some other streams of income for myself. My goal, I'm down to 1 child living at home now, and I bought a new home, and my goal is to be a self-sufficient, successful, independent woman. I live my life exercising. I have a very strict structure in my life as to my daily routine. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. I have no further questions. I'd like to turn it over to the board members.
All right. Then let's begin over here to my far right with Board Member Deerkin.
I have no questions at this time, Your Honor.
Board Member Abella?
Good morning.
morning.
Can I ask why you surrendered your license?
Well, in speaking with the DA, she just really, that was her recommendation at the time, that it would be, we just had discussed it and talked about it, and she said she thought it was a good resolution for me at the time, that really to reinstate your license, you needed time to go by, to live your life and to show your life. That 1 year or asking for a special hearing wouldn't be enough time to show that you are back on track. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm just thinking, if you're saying you're not an alcoholic and never were, why wouldn't, I would think you'd fight for your license. I mean, if you're suggesting that there isn't an issue with alcohol.
No, that wasn't the conversation with her. The conversation was that she felt that the board would want to see a lifestyle or success or, just time go by to measure how you're doing, how you're living life. That's how I understood it, and that's why I did it.
Okay, so you're saying that you used alcohol to self-medicate as a way of dealing with your depression. Is that?
I did.
Okay, and now you're on depression medication, so you don't
No.
feel any urge or issue, and that's the basis of why you feel you won't.
Not exactly, no. Through the 18-month program, I got great skills and understanding being with other people who are having difficulties in their life, period. Mine wasn't alcohol, but alcohol made it better in the evening. So I understood that that was a habit that I didn't need, that I could actually take a bath in the evening or go running or meditate instead of having a glass of wine. So not only that, but also the other structures in my life that were missing as far as confidence and self-esteem, being a mother alone, taking care of 4 children. I just had to learn new skills socially and what kind of people I was hanging out with, what kind of people I should have in my life. Just really expanding on that. I had a lot of knowledge already, but it really reminded me of just what was important and how to stay focused. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. No more questions.
Board Member Dabrowski.
Well, you seem very focused, and you said you have a very tight routine that you follow.
Yes.
How do you adjust when life happens at full speed and something comes into play that you didn't expect or knocks you out of balance a little bit or something unexpected? How are you able to cope and adjust?
That's a great question. I think I'm getting pretty good at it, actually, and I'm involved in, for example, the Morgan Energy Institute, which is an energy course for success. So it teaches you how to let things go, how to have intentions in the morning, how to have my goals set, how to be unattached to the outcome. I do have a structure, but I also have flexibility, and I know that there's going to be cones in the road occasionally, and I'm going to have to detour and route around or change my schedule. I don't get deterred much by that. I don't get put off by that, so I'm not sure specifically if there's another, in regards to what area of my life you're asking.
No, that was a
Okay.
good answer for the question I was asking. And then how long have you been practicing that style of setting up your life?
Very focused in the last 6 years, but was introduced to lots of different thinking and alternative holistic approaches to healing probably at least 15 years ago.
And if you were to get your license back, do you have place that you're anticipating going back to work for?
Yes.
Okay.
I think, currently, I just got my certification. Because I had a medical background, I was able to do the certification to mentor and coach teen girls. It's going to be a pretty lucrative business that I can make my own schedule and be independent. But I also have been relying on alimony for a lot of my income, and that's going to be coming due here in the next 2 years. So it's on my mind. I want you to know that it's on my mind to have my nursing license, that I may want to go into alternative medicine. I could do both. Because with my girls, I only coach, in the evenings, 3 to 6, and on Saturdays. So I could work during the day doing something else. And what really I'm passionate about is alternative medicine and holistic medicine and energy healing, maybe, healing touch at Children's Hospital is something that calls to me.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
President James Perez.
Good afternoon. I'm looking at your packet that you submitted, and on A2, it looks like you're self-employed. You're the owner of a company called InShape MD.
I bought a bioidentical hormone company in 2011, and that's when all of this was happening, DUI. I was trying to open that business. I had a storefront. I didn't have partnership. It was going to be a wellness company. And I just didn't have it in me at that time to continue. I knew I needed to focus on resolving the DUI issue and resetting. I still have that business. I don't really have a passion to open it at this time, but it is something I could as an option, and I would need my nursing license to do that.
And I'm not familiar with that particular company, so you would employ an MD. So who is the MD in the InShape MD?
I had several that were waiting for me to make a decision on, but
You just never.
they're off-site typically, and they do everything by
Got it.
computer.
And then I noticed on A4 you were seeing Dr. Mather,
That's my psychiatrist.
but then you were also going to see a therapist, or you were trying to.
No, I see Ruth McKercher.
You
She
do
has a
see a
PhD. She's in the same office. So I see her, I saw her a lot in 2000 and end of 2011, 12. And I really like her. I continue to have a relationship with her, and I try and see her monthly.
Okay, so you see her monthly.
I do,
About monthly.
at least.
And you, without obviously divulging any of your confidential medical history, have you learned anything in therapy, either with Ruth or Dr. Mather, that would help you be a better nurse?
Have I learned something?
That would help you become a better nurse?
The first thing that comes to my mind is that I just have more freedom with myself and loving myself, forgiving myself. I would imagine I always had compassion for others, but not as much for myself. So,
So those are things that you've learned.
Yes.
In time with them. And then I know Ms. Avella asked about, you surrendered your license in 2012, but correct me if I'm wrong also, Ms. Keller, your license expired in 2008, and you never renewed it.
it was in inactive status, and that was when I was going through my divorce.
Okay.
So I don't know if it just got overstepped or different, while divorcing, changing addresses. I hadn't used it, to be honest, since 1996.
So when was the last time you practiced as a nurse?
1996, yeah. I gave up my career to be a stay-at-home mom.
Sure.
So I put it in active status and just, it wasn't on the radar, so I don't know exactly what happened.
Sure. So you were licensed in 87, and then you practiced until 96 when you went to work at home. And then your license expired. You weren't practicing at the time. And then you surrendered in 2012. That's the correct time?
Correct.
Thank you.
Vice President Moreno.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I've heard your testimony today, and that you believe that there is no issue with alcohol. Is that correct?
Can you speak up just a little?
Your testimony today, you've stated that, in your opinion, there's no issue as to alcohol. Is that correct? Can you explain to me the circumstances of how the 2 DUIs came about? Maybe what was happening that night? If you could explain that to me, please.
Yes. So in 2010, we had a family barbecue at the house, and a few other family friends. There were a lot of kids. My brother and sister and some other people decided to go down the street. I lived along the beach where I live, and there's somewhere they wanted to go that was about 1.5 miles away. I said I was going to stay at home with the kids. That was at about 10 o'clock at night. I was reading. I had had a couple glasses of wine at sunset, which in the summer was probably 9 o'clock at the beach. So they left by 10:30, and then called and wanted me to come pick them up. They didn't want to drive back. I drove to get them. They were acting crazy. We got in the car to drive back a very short distance, and I was pulled over. So,
There was 2 incidences, but now can you explain the other one? What was the other?
I can. So I was living a very strict life at this time after this first DUI, and this was only months later. I had the PTA over. It was the president's birthday. I was not drinking. We were having appetizers at my house and then going to a dinner. That was about, 6 miles from my home. I was not to be driving that night. I had a designated driver, but I didn't drink at the house, but I knew I would be having wine at dinner. My girlfriend, who was supposed to drive, there was 15 of us for a dinner. My girlfriend asked me to drive there and said she would drive home because she had had a cocktail at the house. So I said, okay. So I drove. We went and had a 3-hour dinner. I had 2 glasses of wine over a very long dinner. My girlfriend's husband is a chef, so he was taking care of us that night. We took our time. We were enjoying ourselves. It was all moms and PTA members. And she sat at a different end of the table from me, and she was going through a divorce. I wasn't monitoring her. I was enjoying myself, but apparently she had a lot to drink, way more than I did. So when it came down to it, the girl said, Shelley, you're going to have to drive her home. At that time, Uber wasn't really on the radar. I was thinking 2 glasses of wine over a 3-hour dinner. In my mind, I know the law is no drinking and driving, but the way I was raised was not that. And while I was married, we often had dinner and a glass of wine. I got in the car to drive her home. I set the speed controls along the coast, 50 miles an hour, and an officer pulled me over, said I was speeding, which I wasn't, because I know I had the speed control on, but had me pull over and asked me to be breathalyzed, and that's how that happened.
If the board were to reinstate your license, and let's say that we included a stipulation where there were to be no alcohol, what are your thoughts on that?
I could do that. I would consider that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Board Member Mendoza. No question. Board Member Basta Martinez.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello. In reviewing the packet that you brought and shared with us, there is a document that talks about Reiki.
Yes.
You wanted us to have that for a reason. Help us understand why you've included it in your packet.
I've included it because it's an accomplishment. It's something I'm extremely passionate about. I have one more level to be Reiki Master, which will be happening this fall. But it also ties into, I can do that outside of nursing, but if I wanted to go back into nursing, and like I mentioned earlier, go into healing touch or one of those modalities, which are vastly used in the hospitals in San Diego, where I'm from. I know for a fact Children's Hospital is looking for nurses right now to do that. So it's of interest to me, and it's something that I could use in my nursing. It's a way that I get to heal